The Mutant Mayhem trailer just dropped, and oh boy did it give us a really good look at the new tmnt, and they all look amazing. So today I thought it would be a good idea to rank the designs from worst to best, and I must admit they all do look really great in their own different ways. Now before we do get into this video, I do want to say this now, I won't be ranking April, Splinter being Rocksteady, just because I don't think we've been given a good look at the characters so far. Not to mention I'm also sort of basing these designs off of the voices as well. If they do match then it's great, but if they don't then it's sort of hard to really picture these designs as working with the voices. So that's the reason why I'm not going to be talking about those characters. Okay, so the first one up is Mikey, and I want to say this now, I don't think any of the designs are really bad. I think they're all really great in their own different ways, and you know, they was the last place and they had to be filled, and Mikey so happened to fill that spot, so it's nothing personal, and I don't think that Mikey's design is actually really bad. Actually I think it's really good. Now overall I think that Mikey's design is really great throughout this trailer, and even in the toy form as well. He has this really classic simple look to him that I do think really works, and when I say simple and classic I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's really good, and you can definitely tell that it's Michelangelo, really iconic to being a turtle, and yeah. And I do think that that's all you can really ask for a turtle design really. Now overall I do think his colours do stand out quite well. I do like the dark shaded green for him that I do think really works really nicely. The orange which they use for the armbands, the headband, it all looks really great and all that. My biggest problem with Mikey's design so far is just his head and his shell. So quickly with his shell, I do think that it does, I don't know, I think it's a bit too big for Mikey. I don't really like how it goes over his body or overlaps his body in a way, and you can see it from behind, and I don't know, I think I prefer the smaller shell Mikey, as I think that really works really well, and I just feel as though that it's just going to limit a lot of movement for Mikey, and I feel as though that with Mikey you do need a lot of movement just because of like the way that his character is. And it's not to say that his shell is bad, but I just think that maybe it's just a little bit too big, and I guess I'm nitpicking, but hey, I gotta talk about these designs at some point, right? Now with his head, I don't really know what to really say about it. His head, it changes shape, and I can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it changes from like a shape of a watermelon to the shape of like a normal turtle, which I think that's somewhat interesting, and I do think that in some angles where it looks like a natural head, it looks really great, but in angles that makes it look like a watermelon, I don't really know if I really like it all too much. I don't know how to really put into words. Now I'm not too sure if them acknowledging this in the trailer is a good thing or a bad thing, but overall I can't say that I'm overly pleased with Mikey's head design. Just because I think I would have preferred one normal shaped head for Mikey, and I do think that with it constantly changing between different angles, I don't think it looks too really good. And I must admit I do definitely think that it definitely does stand out for Mikey, which again I can't tell if that's good or not. Okay, next up is Raph, and again I want to say this now, his design is not bad, and I do quite enjoy it. Now I do think that with Raph's design you can definitely tell that there's a lot of inspiration between the Rise of TMNT Raph design as well as the 87 Raph. Now I do definitely think you can definitely tell there's a lot of inspiration from Rise with the headband, and I do think that it does look good for Raph, but at the same time I do prefer the classic headband, so that's all I can really say about it. I don't hate this design, but I just would have preferred a lot more classic look for it. Not to mention I do think that with him being the only turtle with this design, I do think he stands out quite a bit, whether that be for good or bad reasons. Now just like with Mikey, I do also think that his shell is maybe a bit too big, and I think he probably has the biggest shell in the trailer so far, which not too sure about that. Now again with Mikey, I feel as though that with the turtles, you do need a lot of movement because they are ninjas, they can do a lot of jumping, flexibility, they need that movement, and with a big shell, he definitely feels though that he's losing a lot of movement. And especially in the trailer when we do get to see him lying on the ground on his shell, yeah, I'm not too sure what to really make of that. Just because again, I do think that maybe his shell is probably the biggest, and I just don't think it works all too well. Now another thing which I would like to mention about Raph's design, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think that his muscles and his arms in particular are very weak, I want to say, very skinny is probably the best way to describe it. Now when I think of Raph, I was thinking really strong, big, muscular, angry and stuff like that, but with this version of Raph, I'm not really getting those kind of vibes just yet. Now that's not to say that in the future for this series, he will be able to grow those muscles and stuff like that, and be able to become a big beefy boy, which we all know him to be, but I just think that because I always see him as the strong one, I'm sort of losing that image with Raph, and it's sort of hard to imagine that he's going to become this big strong guy in the future for the series. Okay, next up is Dunny, and while his voice may not be the best, I do think his design is really cool. Now again, you can definitely tell that there's a lot of inspiration from the 87 show, and I do think that sort of works in many ways, but also I do think that there's also a bit of inspiration between the Rise of TMNT as well as the Michael Bay TMNT movie. Now what I mean with the inspiration with Rise Donny as well as the Bay Donny is the use of tech. Now I do think that with Rise Donny they did go a bit too cartoony with the gadgets which they used, and I do think that the design which they used for Rise Donny worked really well for Rise of TMNT because it was supposed to be a cartoon and it worked really well for that version. But I do think that with the Bay Donny, I can see where they was going with trying to make him a bit more techie. Now Rise did definitely improve on this design, actually made it work, but I do think that with what Bay was going for, I do think I can see where it's going for, and it is somewhat worked with Donny. And with this new movie version, I do think it's like a perfect balance of both worlds. Just because Donny in this version, he's not going over the top with all his tech, he only has a little fanny pack with a phone as well as some headphones. Not too sure where he's got headphones, but oh well. I do think that his use of technology in this universe is going to be somewhat interesting to see, because so far I've only seen him use a phone, and I do think that with all he's carrying so far with a little phone, little fanny pack, I do think that really works. It's like really short, simple, and straight to the point with Donny, and it's not going over the top with all the gadgets and stuff like that, and really making him look like a nerd. I do think that maybe the fanny pack was maybe a bit of a wrong choice and would prefer a bit more of a normal bag, maybe to go over the shoulders like do in the 2003 TMNT show. But I do think that with the pack it does really work really nicely, and I do think that the phone is pretty much all you need with Donny, so I do like it so far. But I will say this with the goggles, I don't really like it all too much, as I do think that with many fans, he does come off a bit too nerdy and going into those stereotypes, which I do think that maybe on some hands it can look good, but on other hands it can look really nerdy and it's really bad. And with this design, I think it looks okay. I just wish they would probably drop this whole nerdy aspect of his character, as we do know that he's a nerd, but I don't think they really need to show it off in his design in every single version. So I do sort of hope they do drop this in the next version, but overall I do think his design is really great. Okay, next up is Leonardo, and oh boy, I think this design is perfect for being simple and classic. Now when I say simple and classic, I really don't mean that in a bad way, as I feel as though that his design is so iconic to being a Ninja Turtle that it's basically the 87 TMNT design but modernised, and I do think that really works really well. There's nothing overly bad about it and there's nothing overly great about it. I think it's a really classic great design for Leonardo and it works really well, and I do think that a lot of people are going to be able to recognise this as a Leonardo character and be able to say, yeah, this is a Leonardo Ninja Turtle, and I do think that's really great for pretty much all the great reasons, but at the same time, I don't know, I feel as though there could have been something outstanding for his character. I feel as though that there's something missing in terms of his character, as basically all the other characters in this version have something really unique to really like set them apart from all the other characters, but with Leo, he doesn't really have anything outstanding in a way, so I'm somewhat disappointed by that, but I must admit overall his design is really great, and again, it's simple and classic, which works really well. So yeah, that's my ranking for the Mutant Mayhem designs, and I must admit overall I do think they look really great. I am quite interested to hear what you say about this in the comment section below, as it feels though a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about this, maybe for different reasons, and somewhat interested to hear about them, but at the same time, somewhat not, just because of how people reacted with other characters so far. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today guys. If you do have some, please share, like, subscribe and all that stuff. Goodbye, yo, bye.